Selective incorporation is a legal doctrine that ensures certain protections in the Bill of Rights apply to state governments, not just the federal government. Originally, the Bill of Rights only restricted federal actions, meaning state governments could pass laws that limited individual freedoms. However, through selective incorporation, courts have ruled that some rights, such as freedom of speech and protection from unreasonable searches, must also be respected by states. This process occurs through the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause, which prevents states from infringing on fundamental rights that are considered essential to liberty and justice. The concept of selective incorporation developed in the 20th century as courts began using the 14th Amendment to apply parts of the Bill of Rights to the states. Before this, states had more freedom to create their own laws without following federal protections. Over time, landmark court decisions established that certain rights are so fundamental that they must be enforced at both the state and federal levels. This approach was selective because courts applied these protections one at a time, rather than incorporating the entire Bill of Rights at once. As a result, some rights were incorporated earlier than others, shaping modern interpretations of constitutional protections. One example of selective incorporation is the protection of freedom of speech. In early US history, states could pass laws restricting speech without violating the Constitution, but later court rulings established that states must also respect this right. Another example is the right to legal counsel. Originally, states were not required to provide an attorney to people who could not afford one, but through selective incorporation, courts ruled that this right applies to state governments as well. These examples show how selective incorporation has expanded individual protections over time, ensuring that fundamental rights are upheld in all parts of the country. One major strength of selective incorporation is that it protects individuals from unfair state laws by extending essential rights across all levels of government. This ensures that people have the same basic freedoms no matter where they live, preventing states from creating policies that limit fundamental protections. Another strength is that it allows for gradual legal changes, giving courts the ability to carefully consider each right before applying it to the states. This process helps maintain stability while still expanding constitutional protections over time. Despite its benefits, selective incorporation also has weaknesses. One challenge is that the process is not automatic, meaning courts must decide case by case whether a right should be incorporated. This has led to inconsistencies, where some rights were applied to states much later than others. Another weakness is that selective incorporation relies on judicial interpretation, which can change over time. Different courts may have different views on which rights should be incorporated, leading to uncertainty in how laws are applied across states. These challenges make selective incorporation a complex but important legal doctrine.